I want to talk to you about how to set up an LLC as an S corporation. So this is an important element, an important conversation to have. So if you're interested, I want you to look at this overview. So before you do anything, let's talk about before you change your LLC. So what is an S corporation? Because an S corporation is not a business structure, but a tax election that's available for both LLCs and corporations. So if you're out there, you're listening to me right now, if you have an LLC or you have an SC corporation, you can actually transform it. Not transform, you can convert it into an S corporation for tax purposes. So depending on the profits a business generates, electing to be taxed as an S corporation may save a substantial amount of self-employment taxes. So you need to consider whether changing to an S corporation is beneficial for you. Now, LLCs ordinarily have pass-through taxation, which means that businesses' income and deductions pass through to the LLC members or owners' personal taxes. And single-member LLCs are taxed as sole proprietors, and multiple-member LLCs are taxed as partnerships, right? So you file Form 1065 if you're a partnership, and you file Form 1040 if you're a sole proprietor. LLC members will also pay self-employment taxes, and self-employment taxes are the payroll taxes that actually fund Medicare and Social Security. So some LLCs, even single-member LLCs, can elect to be taxed as corporation. However, the business will still have the personal liability protection and management flexibility of an LLC, but it will be taxed as a corporation. In an S corporation, the owners can be company employees. They must be paid a reasonable salary, and they actually will pay payroll taxes on their salary. And however, additional company profits will not be subject to payroll taxes, only income taxes. This is really important. So in general, you want to consider converting from an LLC, partnership, or sole proprietorship to an S corporation when your profits are greater than the amounts that you would reasonably expect to pay in owner salaries. Depending on your specific tax circumstances, this assessment can be complex, so you should discuss this with your tax advisor or attorney. So basically, the thing is that you need to confirm that your business is eligible to operate as an S corporation. You must be a United States business. It must be a United States business, have no more than 100 members and shareholders, have only one class of stock. Shareholders may be individuals and certain trusts and estates, and shareholders cannot be partnerships, corporations, or non-resident aliens. Very important to remember that. Boss, welcome back to the show. It's really a pleasure to have you here. I want to quickly talk to you about how to set up an LLC as an S corporation. Let's talk to you about the approach you want to follow here. So how do you have an LLC taxed as an S corporation? First of all, you need to file something called IRS Form 2553. So this is basically the holy grail of this conversation. The holy grail of this whole process. Form 2553. So to actually convert to an S corporation, you will need to file IRS Form 2553. So for the tax election to have effect for the full year, the form may be filed anytime in the previous year until March 15th of the year in which you want the tax election to take effect. So if you have just launched your LLC, you can file IRS Form 2553 within 75 days of formation to be taxed as an S corporation. So how do you convert business formation from an LLC to an S corporation? Well, it's not really necessary to change to a corporation to elect to be taxed as an S corporation, because things happen automatically. If you have a significant amount of profits carried over year to year, you may want to consider changing to a corporation taxed as a C corporation, C corp, instead of electing to be an LLC taxed as an S corp. If you do want to change from an LLC to a corporation for management and formation purposes, you will need to change the business formally with your state's Secretary of State. So you want to contact your state for specific requirements and fees. So how does an S corporation differ from a C corporation? Let's quickly talk about that. Well, it all comes down to taxes. You have double taxation and you have pass-through taxation. So with a C corporation, which is the default taxation method for corporations, income is taxed at the business level, and again when distributed to owners at distributions or dividends. So we have a double taxation here. With an S corp, on the other hand, income is not taxed at the business level, but only as distribution passed through to the owner level. And so how do you know if S corporation tax election is right for you? Well, it really depends. But in general, based on our research, in general, you want to consider electing S corporation tax status for your LLC if your business is generating sufficient profits to pay a reasonable salary to the members and annual distributions. You should really review your specific situation with the tax advisor before making the switch. This is important because that switch will carry some consequences. Boss, I want to quickly remind you of today's topic. We are having a conversation about how to set up an LLC as an S corporation. Let me give you a bonus here. Okay. Now, when we talk about LLC versus S corporation, do you really need to change your business name if you elect S corporation taxation? No. You do not need to change the business name of your LLC or C corporation if you change to an S corporation tax election. And so your business can remain an LLC and keep its business name while also electing to be taxed as an S corporation, because everything happens on Form 2553, as I said before. The thing here is that the change happens on Form 2553 and only at the federal level. So you do not have to change. Now, depending on the state, you may have to do some little changes, but overall, by and large, like 90% of the times, you do not have to change anything at the state level. You just need to file Form 2553 to effect that change from LLC or C corporation to S corporation at the federal level. That's it. Okay. Now, can LLC members receive business profits in excess of salary? Yes, of course. I mean, the law is not strict when it comes to how you actually manage your business. It is your business after all. Remember that this is your business, so you have to really you have to actually manage it the way you want, as long as it is in sync with your articles of your operating agreement. That's what you need. You need to have an operating agreement that really dictates how the business is going to be managed. That's it. So LLC members can receive distributions of profits that remain after business salaries and expenses are paid. The LLC member will be taxed on distributions at the personal level. So basically, if you get distributions from an LLC, basically you're going to have to include that number on your Schedule C when you file your Form 1040 at the end of the year. Okay, so you're not going to pay a self-employment tax on the distribution. You are going to pay income taxes at the 1040 level. This is all you need to know about. Now, if you are receiving some kind of compensation, then we're talking about self-employment taxes that you need to file every quarter if what you owe is above a certain threshold. Let me give you a few pro tips here. The thing here is that when we talk about choosing S corporation tax status for your LLC, an important question should be, well, why do you want to do the switch in the first place? I mean, because the thing is that just because you have an LLC, regardless, again, the LLC situation I'm talking about has nothing to do with the state where the LLC was formed in the first place. Doesn't matter whether you were formed in New York or you're formed in Nebraska or you're formed in Washington State or you're formed in New Mexico. The logic I'm telling you here applies across the board. So in order to think about going from S corporation tax status from LLC to S corporation, there's got to be some benefits, right? I mean, so what are the benefits of being an LLC? The thing is that you have three things. There are three main benefits. So you have limited liability. The thing is that basically you are shielding your personal assets. You do not want something to happen to your personal assets, to your family's assets, because see, you are having a business. You do not want to endanger your family's well-being. This is why a lot of folks are choosing the LLC legal structure in the first place. So LLC owners have limited personal liability for debts owed by the business. Typically, liability is no more than the amount each invested in the business. So partnership owners and sole proprietorships may be personally liable for all business debts, which is why people don't like LP. But again, this is another topic for another day. With an LLC, you are able to avoid double taxation, and this benefits also transfers to S corporation status. So if you're an S corporation, you also benefit from double taxation. So basically, you are a pass-through entity. So income passes through the entity and goes straight to the owners. And so things like it's the same thing with self-employment tax. Okay. And the third thing that really people love when it comes to an LLC is that you are minimizing paperwork and overhead. So compared to a regular corporation, that is a C corporation, basically, if you have an LLC, you have fewer record keeping and meeting requirements. This makes it a lot simpler for small businesses to operate in the first place. So in addition to these three benefits, there are a lot of choices that LLC owners have when setting up the entity, especially from a tax standpoint. In other words, you can be somewhere in Delaware. You can be in Chicago, for instance, in Illinois, and set up your LLC in Delaware, or set up your LLC in Wyoming, set up your LLC in New Mexico, set up your LLC in Florida. So you have this flexibility between domestic LLC versus foreign LLC. So this is really something that is not really easy with, that may not be easy with certain other types of business structure. I want to dig a little deeper here to actually talk about the tax treatment of LLC income. And the thing is that, by default, right, as I've said before, the LLC's income passes through straight through to the owner's tax return. That really is a clear cut. However, there are multiple tax choices that you can elect when setting up an LLC that could make it more beneficial for your taxation. Everything depends on your situation. But when an LLC opts for an S corporation tax structure, for example, it typically changes the way the IRS treats their LLC's income. So when income from traditional LLCs passes through to owners, they pay tax on it as self-employment income. The self-employment tax comes to 15.3%, with Social Security representing 12.4% and Medicare tax representing 2.9%. Pretty simple, right? 12.4, 2.9. That is not the case with an S corporation tax choice. Instead, the income of the business falls to the owners, and the owners typically receive a paycheck as an employee of the corporation, where the company pays taxes. So so it's really important to really pay attention to that. So the thing is that if you actually pay attention to your pay stub, you will see that self-employment taxes are higher than Social Security and Medicare taxes paid by workers who are not self-employed, right? So basically, if you were to switch to an S corporation, you are actually saving more money. And this is because employers pay another 6.2% for Social Security and 1.45% for Medicare without passing it on to employees. So self-employed people pay both taxes. They pay both halves of the tax. So there are two key factors to consider here. You have income from a corporation is treated as a dividend instead of earnings. That means dividend recipients don't have to pay Social Security and Medicare taxes on that income. And the owner of an S corporation can let some of his or her business profits pass through as earnings. Meanwhile, other profits pay out as dividends that are free of self-employment tax. So this is kind of the gist of it. So by having LLC treated as an S corporation for tax purposes, a business owner may save a considerate amount of money in tax payments. By the way, boss, I want to quickly remind you of today's topic. We are having a conversation about how to set up an LLC as an S corporation. Now, let me talk to you about how an LLC being taxed as an S corporation works. So let's say you are the sole owner or the sole member of an LLC that earns $100,000 in net income. So what happens here is that all $100,000 will pass through to you as self-employment income. In addition to income taxes, you will owe self-employment tax of $15,300 or 15.3% of the $100,000. If you have elected to be taxed as an S corporation, you might have $50,000 passed through as earnings and $50,000 distributed as dividends. Then you would owe just $7,650 in self-employment tax for a tax savings of $7,550, right? Another potential advantage of an S corporation is that the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act made certain pass-through businesses eligible for a 20% qualified business income deduction, the QBI deduction. So this can produce additional tax savings not available to C corporations. So these potential tax benefits are the main reason LLCs elect to be taxed as S corporation. So let's talk about choosing LLC tax status. So an LLC can choose an S corporation tax structure because an LLC is a business entity defined by state law. Meanwhile, S corporation describes how the IRS treats a business for tax purposes. So if the LLC doesn't choose, the IRS applies a default tax structure depending on the number of members of the LLC. So a single member LLC will by default be treated as a sole proprietor by the IRS, and an LLC with more than one member will default to partnership status. In other words, you have to file Form 1065. So an LLC can choose to be treated as an S corporation in a two-step process. First of all, you actually file Form 8832. So this is called Entity Classification Election. So this causes the business to be taxed as a C corporation. And then you have to file Form 2553. So this is basically you are electing S corporation tax structure. So this is a two-layer thing, okay? And make sure that you actually follow those two layers, because otherwise your LLC cannot switch from LLC to S corporation. First, you got to go from LLC to C corporation, and from C corporation to S corporation. Now, it's important to understand that there are some advantages and there are some benefits and drawbacks when it comes to being an S corporation. So let's first talk about the disadvantages of being an S corporation, because there are some disadvantages. So despite the potential benefits, S corporation status for an LLC is not a no-brainer. This may not be necessarily the case, okay? And there are some disadvantages to be aware of as well. First of all, not every business is eligible, because not all LLCs are eligible for S corporation status. Only U.S. corporations with no more than 100 owners, all of whom are U.S. residents, can choose S corporation status. Plus, they can only have a single class of shareholders. So these restrictions can prevent an S corporation from attracting investors when you think about it. So you also have added costs. So there are also extra administrative costs. S corporations have extra record keeping and meeting requirements compared to sole proprietorships. However, the paperwork burden is lighter than for C corporations. Also, earnings could impact the retirement plan contributions. This is another element that really discourages some investors, because earnings determine earning your income determine caps on annual IRA and other retirement plan contributions. So the more you take in dividends, the less you can put into a tax advantage plan. And you also have the risk of potential audits, because S corporations are also somewhat more prone to IRS audits. And if the IRS determines that you're not paying yourself a reasonable salary, the agency may reclassify some dividends as earnings. Then you might owe self-employment tax plus penalty and interest on those too. So what's the bottom line here? The bottom line here is that the S corporation is the only business tax status that lets you save on Social Security and Medicare taxes while avoiding double taxation. So an LLC taxed as an S corporation offers the benefit of a corporation while also providing flexibility on income treatment. So the thing is, if you want to, let's say if you want to operate on the most bare bones tax stingy structure possible, an LLC taxed as an S corporation may be the right tool for you. But it's really important to understand that if you're wondering if an LLC tax as an S corporation is the right path for your business, consider always consulting with a financial advisor. This could be a CPA, it could be a tax lawyer, it could be a financial advisor, okay? So that you are able to know exactly what works for you and what doesn't work for you, because situations are different. And the situation is different maybe because of your lifestyle, of your financial profile, of the state you're in, of the sector you're in, and again, many, many, many things. Thank you so much for your attention. I really appreciate it. Just quickly do a recap here. So I spoke to you about how to set up an LLC as an S corporation. I give you the overview, the approach, the bonus, the pro tips, and the recap. Thank you so much. God bless you. I'll see you next time. But until then, remember, stay marvelous.